Welcome to 69 X Minutes, where each week we bring you the hottest stories, expert insights, exclusive interviews, and jaw-dropping revelations from around the world. There's nowhere else quite like X. The future of journalism, well, it's right here. We are the media now. Tonight we dive into the Epstein files, discuss US defence waste with Colonel Wilkerson, explore Doja's market impact, break down the escalating violence in the Congo, and we're joined by former Trump official Chad Wolf to talk border security. We've also got a rare, unfiltered sit-down with the man they call Putin's brain, as Mario digs into Russia's strategy with Trump now in power. And a sneak peek of Mario's upcoming interview with the president of Belarus. Now, this is about the Russia-Ukraine potential peace talks and how it all began. Plus, in my take, Jane Fonda gives us the meaning of the word woke. And didn't the X sphere light up in response? By the way, I happen to vehemently disagree with her. That's your preview of what stood out on X this week, and what's coming up on the show. It's chaotic, absurd, groundbreaking, and always trending hard. So, buckle up. Surging migration, cartel violence, and the shifting policy. America's southern border was at a breaking point before Trump. How can America tighten enforcement, stop illegal crossings, and hold Mexico accountable? Former DHS Secretary Chad Wolf joins us to break down the policies that worked and what must change to secure the border now.
You know, a lot of discussion about immigration in the news. There's record number of executive orders, 12 of them focusing on the border specifically.
This is a proclamation guaranteeing the state's protection against invasion based on the current crisis at the southern border.
We saw a major piece of legislation with the Lake and Riley Act. I want to get your take generally sort of how you see the evolution of our immigration policy from what we had to what we have just 30 days after Trump has become president.
Well, I think what President Trump has been able to do over these several weeks, I think it's a demonstration that policies matter, leadership matters, the will matters, right? When you have presidential authorities, you utilize them, and that's what President Trump is doing for the betterment of the American people. And so, look, they've done a lot in 4 weeks. They're probably going to do a lot more. I support all of it. It's past time that it needed to be done because the American people are tired. They're tired of giving away their taxpayer dollars to illegal aliens. They're tired of illegal aliens coming into their communities. Just the sheer fact that we're calling them illegal aliens is they don't have a right to be in the United States. So either we're a country of law and order and we adhere to that and there are consequences to that, or we're not.
Fentanyl has been a big problem, both on the northern border and southern border. Big focus of putting the tariffs on were to get cooperation from our neighbors and stopping the illegal flow of drugs that I think probably killing more Americans than anything else at this point. Considering the tremendous success at the border, how optimistic are you that we might be able to stop that flow of fentanyl as well? And are we seeing cooperation now from Mexico and Canada on that?
How you're able to stop and detect and apprehend fentanyl, which is very small, can be smuggled very, very easily, is a different challenge. I think it starts with the cartels. It starts with, the president's done that. He's designated them as foreign terrorist organizations, and I think that's a big deal.
So they are now designated as terrorist organizations, foreign, and Mexico probably doesn't want that.
They are at the heart of everything that goes on along that border, whether it's the human trafficking or the illegal narcotics. Nothing comes across that border if it's not controlled by the cartels. So I think they should be public enemy number one. We should go after them very aggressively. We've admired this problem for decades. We've said, the cartels are a problem, but we don't actually do anything. We just talk about it. I think the president and his team are interested in doing something about it. I think it will be a challenge, though. The results won't come as quickly as we've seen some of the illegal apprehensions and some of the human trafficking, but I think they're up for it.
A lot of this fentanyl produced in China, from what I understand, and being sent through our southern borders. How has relations with China now been affected over the last 30 days with Trump making a stronger push on the border? Are we engaging China as well with respect to sending it through our southern border? Is this a fly?
Yeah, I mean, this is something that President Trump did in his first term and engaged China and really had them step up to try to deal with the amount of fentanyl coming in. And during that period of time, it was coming into the United States through express consignment, through the UPSs and the DHLs of the world, right? We were able to stop that, but then they just started moving it to Mexico. So a lot of the precursors come from China into Mexico, cooked up there, and then sent across this border. So I think the Trump team's got not only Mexico and Canada to deal with, but also China, and I know they're engaging them on that front as well. So it's not just one or the other, it's going to have to be all of the above.
What do you view as being the biggest threat coming out of China right now? Do you think it's the data breach or the drugs, or do you see something else?
Oh, it's all the above, right? I don't know that you can pinpoint one specific thing. There's cyber attacks that they'll authorize, the fentanyl you've talked about, data breaches, I mean, immigration, data theft, IP theft, you name it, they're probably involved in it. And so, the CCP, the Communist Party of China, is probably one of our most fierce adversaries. They want, unlike the Russians or the Iranians and others, they want to supplant us as a superpower in the world. And so they're going to do it from a variety of different fronts. And data is one part of that. We called this out during the first Trump administration, and we were told, because if you remember, it was all about Russia, 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 right? And the left and others were trying to tell you that Russia is our biggest adversary. And going back to 2018 and 19, we saw it. We saw the intelligence to say, no, our biggest adversary is China for a variety of different reasons. And we were called, all sorts of names about how we were dismissing it. Fast forward to today, and I don't think there's any doubt that China is our biggest adversary. And even those on the left are saying it.
There's a lot been made of China buying up land in the United States, farmland, residential land. How do you view the threat of China buying American land, and should it be prohibited?
Well, it should be, and I think there are actions that certain states are taking to make sure this doesn't happen. Obviously, buying up farmland, buying up ag producers, that's a problem because that's how we feed our country, right? We won't want to be beholden to that. They're also buying up land that are next to sensitive locations, next to military bases and the like. And when I get into discussions with people, they're like, well, maybe that's okay. Can you go to China today and buy any land next to a military base in China? Absolutely not, right? And so this idea of reciprocity, like we need to start treating them the same way they treat U.S. businesses. You can't, as a U.S. business, go in and buy land in China, or as an individual, they won't. That obviously they're not going to let that happen. Why we allow it here, I have no idea.
Some of the things I hear a lot from my friends on the left is that the tariffs on Canada are unnecessary because Canada isn't really that big of a border issue, and them securing the border doesn't really affect the border crisis as much as the southern border. But that's not accurate, is it?
I don't think it is. Obviously, the situation along the Canadian border is very different than the Mexican border.
Sure.
The numbers are different, but what we've seen over the last 4 years is a troubling trend line. More illegal apprehensions, more fentanyl and illegal narcotics coming across that border. So if you don't address it now, maybe you have to address it in 10 years from now where it's out of control. And I think that's what President Trump is looking at. During the Biden administration, they had more people come across that northern border than they did in the past 17 years combined, right? And so that's a problem. And it's a problem if the traffickers and others start to move their operations from Mexico and go to Canada. So you want to address that pretty head on. And the fentanyl problem is bigger than the human trafficking issue out of Canada. The president knows that. That's why he engaged with him.
Well, that was wild. President Trump and his VP absolutely demolished Ukrainian President Zelensky in the Oval Office Friday after what appears to have been Zelensky, while in D.C., to beg Americans for even more billions. Apparently, Pretty Z brought with him quite an entitlement attitude that didn't sit well with Trump and really pissed off J.D. Vance. Listen.
I'm talking about the kind of diplomacy that's going to end the destruction of your country.
Yes, but if you are not strong...
Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come into the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media. Right now, you guys are going around and forcing conscripts to the front lines because you have manpower problems. You should be thanking the president for trying to bring an end to this conflict.
Have you ever been to Ukraine that you say what problems we have?
Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because you're in no position to dictate that.
That's
Remember
exactly
this.
I'm not
You're in no position to dictate what we're going to feel.
I'm guessing that didn't go as planned in Kiev. I can almost confidently assure you that. Note to President Z. Read the room, brother. Trump and conservative Americans are all for ending the war, but even more so all for stopping the billions in aid going to that war. I'm Eric Bolling. That's your 69 seconds for 69 minutes.
This week, the gruesome beheadings of 70 Christians shocked the world, but the violence ripping through the Congo is nothing new. For years, the country has fueled the global supply chain with its vast mineral wealth. Yet behind every shiny diamond and flashy smartphone is a darker story of conflict, exploitation and greed. Now, a war is brewing in the country, torn apart by corruption, foreign interference, and a government that silences those fighting for a better future. One man dares to challenge the system, advocating for transparency, authenticity, and real change for the Congolese people. But the corrupt elite want him silenced. Piotr Curzon sits down with Congo's billionaire, Moise Katumbi, to find out if Africa can take ownership of its future, or will the cycle of corruption continue?
But to join me for this, to talk about it in an incredible way, is Moise Katumbi, who is the former governor of Katunga and someone who I think is very respected among many Congolese people. You've done an incredible amount of work. So take us through a little bit about your personal journey.
I came from a business family. Myself, I was a very successful businessman before I entered as a governor. I had my team before I became governor. I won a lot of cups with the team. I learned a lot. And as entrepreneur, I learned a lot before I became governor. So I became one of the best governor which Congo never have. Those are the report from all the friends and all partners and all the donors. We did a lot of infrastructure in the country. I find a province which was dead. All the minerals belong, the majority, almost 70% of the minerals belong to, is in Katanga province. So when I came, there was no road, there was no hope for the people, there was no jobless, no electricity, no water. So I did which I supposed to do. That's why I remain in the heart of the Katangese and all the Congolese people. In politics is like what is happening in America. President Trump come from a business. He's a strong businessman. Elon Musk. We need really to change the way of governing, and these things helped me because I was running the province like a project which is supposed to be successful on behalf of everyone. My bigger achievement first was to bring peace in the province, justice, infrastructure, and also creating employment.
Right.
I invited all the American investors, Freeport McMoran, French company, Australian, everyone. I say we need to add the value in the country. For the first year, from 8,000 tons, we went almost to 1 million tons of copper, which even the Belgians never did. When I resigned, I left the production at 1.8 million tons of copper because we needed value to be added in the country. And cobalt, from 10,000, I went to 140,000 tons of cobalt. So in the mining sector, I invited the people. I wanted to change the business climate, to have a good climate for business. So I had almost 70 companies which came and invest and build new infrastructure, new smelters, everything, which really stabilize even the country money. Congo is a very rich country. Today, the Congolese people are the poorest in the world, maybe third poorest country in the world because of plundering the economy, no vision, no stability. People are getting richer when they are not in politics. They are very poor. They come in politics, they become the richest guys, going with private jets, and they go to ask for donation all over for the people. With their spending is where I support President Donald Trump to review these things to see really if this money is going to the final destination. Is this money helping? We had a very bad election in 2023 where it's my first time since I was born. I'm 60 years old.
Right, people didn't want you to win. You're very popular amongst a lot of Congolese people, but
you see, the problem is we went from a very chaotic election with supposed to be finished in one day. Election started at 7 o'clock in the morning. It's supposed to be stopped at 17 hours in the noon. 17 in the afternoon.
Oh, okay, 5 o'clock.
In the afternoon. So after that, they didn't stop it. They say, no, we should continue for 7 days. It's the only country where they went to vote for 7 days, where they arrested people with voting machine in their houses. They elect the member of parliament. They elect the president. So the 5 different categories to get elected. So really this was a shame because we never had an election in our country. And this creates the instability. If really you had a very good election, if President Tshisekedi won the election, I'm a football man, I'm a chairman of a big football team. For fair play, I suppose to say, congratulations, you have done it. He didn't do it in 2018. He didn't win in 2023. And really, they refuse even the observer from the EU to come and observe the election. They refuse to come and audit the electoral commissioner to say really the numbers of the things and to audit even the voting machinery. Really, this was a total mess. The problem of Congo today is not the people of Congo, it's us politicians. If this fraud is going to continue, where the president never won the election and become the president, is waste of time.
Yeah,
people change. There is a lot of mismanagement. There is nobody trust this government, illegitimacy. So no one is going to go with his money to go and invest. It's up to us first to say, okay, there is a rule of law, there is fair competition, there is no corruption. We give people, all the investors, under 50-50% of chances to invest in the country. There is money, a lot of money. Congo never benefited any money for the all. And I think the door is open for all the investors to come and invest in the Congo. When peace is going to be in Congo, when it's going to be good governance, when they are going to be a real president elected, is going to stop instability. So we don't refuse the offer of President Trump because all the mine today, 98% have gone. There is no mine. This project of the president to say, I pledge the mine. There is no mine is a dream. It's a totally dream. I was a governor. I know the numbers of the things. And the president doesn't have the right to say what he say because we have to consult the Congolese people. The wealth belongs to the Congolese people. And I think this is just communication, maybe communicated badly. I think Congo is open for everyone. More investors, more creation of jobs is going to bring more development. Let's forget about the past, where we are going just to go and beg and beg and beg. Let's work together to have the best all the entire world. We have to love each other first, what is more important, and they have to have hope for a better Congo, where the Congolese are going to be respected. Congolese have lost the respect in all the entire world. We've lost our respect because of plundering, economy, bad governance, killing. So we need to stop this. There is a time to focus for a better Congo.
Hey everyone, this is 69 Seconds. I'm Adele, your host, founder at Traders Vault. Here are the top Web3 stories that took place this week. Bitcoin took a massive hit. It dropped over 5%, falling below 80K for the first time since November. This comes after a 1.5 billion Ethereum hack and uncertainty over US crypto regulations. Next up, the biggest crypto heist ever took place. The FBI confirms North Korea's Lazarus Group was behind the Bybit hack, the biggest crypto theft in history. Stolen funds are expected to be funding the North Korean regime. Hong Kong bets big on Web3 and AI. Hong Kong is investing $125 million to boost AI and Web3 research. The funds will expand Cyberport's supercomputing power and support blockchain innovation. Crypto regulation in the US is gaining momentum. Two major bills are in the works, one to regulate stablecoins and another to improve market structure. This could reshape the industry and bring much more needed clarity. And Wildcard moves to Ethereum. The popular Web3 game Wildcard is shifting its NFTs from Polygon to Ethereum, aligning with its long-term token strategy. And that's it for this week's top headlines. Like and follow for more, and I'll see you next time.
Ever wondered what goes on in the mind of the man they call Putin's brain? Well, tonight's your chance to find out. Mario sat down with Professor Alexander Dugin, one of Russia's most controversial yet influential thinkers. His writings on geopolitics and Eurasianism have shaped Putin's vision of a multipolar world, one where Russia isn't just competing with the US, but standing as its equal. Now, with Trump and Putin potentially back at the negotiating table, the stakes couldn't be higher. How do these two men, each with their own vision for global power, strike a deal over a country caught in the middle? Could Ukraine be the key to peace, or just another battleground in the fight for dominance? This is a rare look into the ideas that have helped drive Putin's Russia and what comes next.
The Western media loves to reference you as Putin's brain or Putin's philosopher. I prefer to refer to you as more Russia's philosopher. You've been into Russian politics and history for most of your life. And here we are today, probably one of the trickiest positions for Russia since the fall of the Soviet Union. So my first question to you, sir, is maybe let's start focusing on President Putin, because we are in the midst of negotiations between President Putin and Trump. Maybe tell the audience of what you can share about your relationship with Putin.
Putin is deeply and absolutely Russian. I am also. And because we share with Putin the same concern, the same ontological concern about the destiny of our people, and we understand with Putin more or less in equal terms what should happen and what direction we need to proceed, basing on the logic of Russian history, or on the geopolitics of heartland, of land power, Christian Orthodox faith, and vision of the future, idea of the Antichrist as the Western perverted, materialistic, atheistic civilization. And all that was a kind of project, not just deploring of how we have lost our Holy Russia, but the idea to transform this nostalgia, this belief and a memory of our glorious past, to project that into the future. And I have spoken about that from the end of the 80s. And when Putin came, I have immediately recognized in him the person who will accomplish this project. I think that our country and our people were chosen by God in order to accomplish some mission we have received from the Byzantine Empire after its fall, the mission to keep Orthodox Christian faith and keep Christian empire, Christian state until the last day. We gave totally perverted, heretical form to the same idea to fight against the degenerated West, and we have rediscovered the spiritual, religious mission after the end of the Soviet Union. So the end of the Soviet Union was interpreted in this context as the return of the Russia to its eternal roots. But in the 90s, there was the huge disaster. We went to the West, we have accepted liberal globalist values, and we have almost lost this sovereignty, the possibility to restart, to accomplish our mission and to restart our history. And with Putin, that was precisely the moment where this miracle, historical and political miracle, has happened. We have returned to the history, and all the world around us as well changed. And when Trump came to power, we have discovered that there is in the West another West. Inside of the globalist liberal West, there is totally different West, and I think that is great joy for Russian patriots to discover Trump's America. With such West, we could find the common principles, and I think that now we're in a very special situation. We are following the same line, but the revolution is on your side this time.
Many in the West portray you as an anti-American, as a warmonger. But based on what you've just said, essentially, you don't oppose the US, you oppose the concept of liberalism, and you want to protect Russian sovereignty. And what you're saying, under Trump, Russia is facing a new United States of America. I envisage an alliance between Russia and the new United States, a Trump administration. Would you agree with that statement?
So I never was against the West as such. I was against the liberal globalist West. There are different things. So two genders, traditional values, patriotism, the love for the history, preserving identity of culture, of the people, justice, destruction of bureaucracy, transparency, accountability, the real power of the people. All these elements we accept. And when we see what Trump is doing now with great speed, that is a kind of the second miracle. In our own history, in my opinion, the first miracle was the coming to power of President Putin, who has saved Russia from globalist liberal time. And now Trump is saving United States of America and maybe the whole Western world from the same catastrophe. So I think that now there is a moment when we share the same tendency of the defense of the identity, return to the traditional values, and more than that, we share the same project of the future. So we need to reconsider our relation with United States of America, with Trumpists. America, because that is something different. Previous administration were the enemies of Russia. They were Russophobic. They hated the tradition, the normality, every traditional value. But now we see that new administration, it is totally different. That is totally new direction. And to say the truth, I admire that.
That gives me hope. From what you're saying, you see a higher likelihood of peace in Europe based on the new administration, the new Trump administration. Obviously, a lot of it will also depend on the EU as well. So my two questions to you, sir, is first, how important is Europe's stance when it comes to Russian relations versus America? And the second question is, how big of a role do you think the American stance and what you call neoliberalism, and the liberal globalist agenda, how big of a role did that play in the war in Ukraine?
I think that liberal ideology played an essential role in the conflict in Ukraine because Russia, as sovereign power, was precisely the stronghold of traditional values with Putin. That was the civilizational state defending traditional values, rejecting woke, DEI, gender politics, LGBT, and all the rest. And that was the enemy, ideological enemy of this global liberal ideology. Everybody who dares to criticize liberalism or globalism is immediately qualified as enemy. And what you do with the enemy, you destroy them, you discredit them, you demonize them. So that was the ideological reason to start this war. And Europe still tries to follow the same path. They will try to resist. They try to help Ukrainians to fight against us, and I think they will sabotage the Trump's effort to bring the peace. Now European Union is the problem. So we have, that is kind of paradox. Now in Europe, United States of America and Russia, we have the same enemy, this globalist liberal elite that is against you and against us. And when we see whom we support, who was invited for Trump inaugurational event from Europe, they are the same populist, right, populist, conservative, traditionalist group that we supported. The people who wanted to make Europe great again, and we were blamed for that. There were so many hoax about that, how Putin interfered in the European elections and all that. All these wrong accusations were organized by Soros and other globalist network. And now we see that we have exactly the same powers and political movement in Europe that were invited to Trump and supported by Trump, and who are in favor of the peace with Russia. They don't want to continue this war. So we have many common points in Europe and outside of Europe, and I think that that gives the hope for the future peace talks between Putin and Trump. And I think in these conditions, very, very special, very unique conditions of the balance of power and ideological tendencies in the new world after Trump's victory, give us the hope that we could bring finally the peace.
Hi, I'm Jake Huger, host of The Young Turks on Populist Left. On the left, some of us thought that MAGA was a cult and that you guys would never disagree with Donald Trump. I was skeptical about that idea. Well, let's see how the week turned out. So Trump put out a Trump Gaza video that was AI and made no sense, and MAGA kind of hated it. And then he said China should do more real estate investments in America, and MAGA kind of hated it. He released Andrew Tate, it appears, and half of MAGA seems to have hated that. They said they're not going to cut defense, they're going to add $100 billion to defense. MAGA didn't like that. And then the Epstein files, disaster, and who called them out on it? MAGA. Look, on Epstein, those files are going to magically go missing soon, even though Pam Bondi said they were on her desk. Keep holding them accountable. There's only one force on earth strong enough to make both the Democratic and Republican parties heal and make sure that information is hidden forever. And you know what that force is. All right, on the budget, keep your eyes on the prize. Follow the money. The $4.5 trillion in tax cuts is what all the donors want. It's not going to go to you. It's going to go to corporations and the wealthy. Mark my words. Keep holding them accountable.
For decades, the Pentagon's budget has grown unchecked, with trillions vanishing into classified projects, defence contracts, and conflicts that seem, well, never-ending. while politicians justify the spending in the name of national security. Critics argue the system has become a business model for war profiteers. Colonel Wilkerson and Ben Cohen, yes, co-founder of Ben & Jerry's ice cream. That surprised me too. Well, they join us to expose the biggest racket in government and why Elon's Doge is set to mess with the war machine's gravy train.
First, Colonel, I'm gonna go to you. You've served in government for a long time. You've seen a lot of change. What's your take right now about where we are as a country and sort of the direction we're going in?
In a grand strategic sense, it's all new because I grew up my formative years as well as my older years in the Cold War and only saw its end when I was working for Chairman Powell, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff in 91, 92, 93, ultimately 94. Two presidents, H.W. Bush and Bill Clinton. The interim period between that and now has been most tumultuous. Wang Yi said it is an age of transformation and turbulence, and he's absolutely right.
We talked a little bit before we started recording, sort of about the military-industrial type complexes and those, and it's sort of the direction of our international intent with warfighting and the way we do things abroad. You mentioned all these times where it seems America has taken a very forward position in being engaged in things. There has been some talk about sort of disengaging and from these forward engagements and stop putting our military in harm's way unless it's absolutely necessary. What's your take based on everything you've seen? I mean,
look at Rome. Rome was involved in a number of skirmishes. They wouldn't have called them skirmishes. They caused a lot of casualties, but they never won. They just kept the frontier from collapsing on Rome itself. That's kind of what empires do, and that's what we're doing now, but we're doing it very inexpertly.
The U.S. requires our country to be dominant throughout the world, military and economic spheres. That's our current strategy, and it's absurd. You know, just because a country develops and becomes more advanced economically or militarily doesn't make them an enemy.
We are taking our eye off the ball in a way that I agree with. Ukraine, maybe even ultimately the Mideast. President Trump has said a number of times, and I agree with him 100%, that he wants the United States out of the Middle East completely, except for business. We can do business with Mohammed bin Salman. We can do business with the Emirates and others who have tons of money, but we don't want to be there militarily. I'm all for that.
Now, I wanted to throw that over to you, Colonel, because you have spent obviously a very successful career in the military and a lot of time in government, and you've studied these issues in depth. And I think what the common message I'm hearing from both of you is that we spend way too much time and money preparing to kill people. What do you view as being really the role of the United States and the United States military? Do you view it as more of a defensive posture and preparation and sort of not getting involved in spending money and all these other things?
Well, I spent roughly the last 20 years, both professionally in the military and in civilian universities, teaching young people. Over 400 students at William & Mary alone in 3-hour seminars once a week for 14 times. They taught me a lot, some really bright students. And in the honors program at George Washington University, same thing. But they taught me a lot. And the subject we dwelt on more than anything else is what we call fateful decisions. And that simply meant decisions that U.S. presidents make to send young people to war and to kill people for state purposes, and often to die themselves. And that got a lot of conversation going. 3-hour seminars, 14 of them a whole semester long. And they taught me, and I told them this all the time, they taught me more than I taught them. What they taught me was that they weren't that way. They taught me that they were sick and tired of what we were studying. They were fed up with it, and they were going to do their best to get educated sufficiently to do something about it. And that made me feel pretty good every day that I went home from those seminars. I hope it works. I hope other people across the country are doing that sort of thing. But we've gone astray. We have gone far astray. These young people know this, and I'm hoping we have some change coming, but they've got to get through a real huge mess before they can get to the point where they can affect some change. I just hope that happens. I hope we're not so dead to the reality of what we've done to ourselves and are doing to the world that we can't change.
It's unbelievable when the world responds to cooperation. All we need to do is help people, and that'll make a more secure world for people. That'll raise the opinion of people around the world. You know, when they used to do these studies, they did world polls of which country do you think is the most detrimental to peace in the world? And the world always picks the United States. We are the rogue nation.
The world is not one of confrontation now, it's one of comity, collaboration, and cooperation. Otherwise, nuclear weapons are going to kill us, or if they don't, the climate crisis will. And that cannot be handled by just one country, no matter how powerful. It takes everyone participating.
You've been an advocate for a lot of different things, Ukraine war being one of them. Being a business owner, creating this brand, and then having the courage to speak out on issues that are important to you politically, have you ever been concerned that it might affect the brand that you spent so long building?
You know, one thing to point out is that I am technically an employee of Ben & Jerry's, but I have no authority and no responsibility. So I'm speaking for myself here. What Ben & Jerry's has found is that the more stands that it takes on what people think are controversial issues, the more ice cream we sell. In the early days, we developed this social mission that's based on a stated set of values: justice, equality, fairness, centering people that have been oppressed and deprived. We've just stayed true to those values.
I wanted to hone in on something that a lot of people are talking about right now, about Elon Musk's role in Doge and in the government and the spending cuts. And I can tell you have a strong opinion about it, and I can tell by Ben smiling when I ask you, he probably has an opinion on it. What's your take on because you've said complimentary things about Trump, and if he does this, you said you'll be applauding. You expressed concerns about what Elon is doing. What's your take on Doge and Elon's involvement?
I certainly have no problem with someone with a writ and basically following the Constitution and law going in and doing what we would call in the military organizational effectiveness. That is to say, get rid of the dead wood, hire some fresh wood, streamline processes, look at the system or system of systems is really a better way to describe it, and seek more perfection in those systems, both human-wise, workers, and in terms of the mechanics of the system. I have no problem with that, and the U.S. government needs it. I just have a problem with people who go in with a meat cleaver, and the Constitution is not a thought at all.
Well, I totally agree with Larry, but I gotta say that President Trump's statement that he wants to cut the Pentagon by 50%, exactly what we need to do. It's a question of how you do it. That's the most positive, encouraging sign that I've seen in these days.
We could cut $1 trillion over the next 10 years, $100 billion a year out of the present Pentagon budget, and all you would get is a more efficient and effective military instead of a polluted military with all the money that it's getting.
Yeah, and then if you change the scope, I mean, right now the military is tasked with controlling the entire world. If you change to a policy of restraint, whereby the task of the military is actually defense, changing it from a Department of War to a Department of Defense, then I think you could cut way more than the $100 billion that Larry's talking about. But he's the expert. I'm the ice cream guy. I defer to Larry.
No, you could, if you really had carte blanche, you could probably cut more. I will agree with that. And I have news for Americans, and maybe even for you, Ben. We aren't controlling the world.
Rep. Ogle's new PEDO Act is aimed at unsealing all Epstein-related documents and strengthening penalties for child exploitation crimes. So who's sweating? Who's pulling strings to keep it all buried? And what does this mean for a justice system that sometimes seems allergic to, well, justice? The congressman from Tennessee sat down with our reporter to break it all down. Because as we know, silence protects the guilty. And the public, well, we deserve the truth.
Tell me a little bit about these, at least this first phase of the Epstein files release.
Yeah, keep in mind that Attorney General Bondi and Director Patel have just come into office, and there's going to be kind of a lag before they can truly take the helm or the bull by the horns, if you will. So that's why I have the Pedo Act, which is to protect Epstein document obliteration, thus pedo. But that being said, I wasn't disappointed because it's kind of what I expected. And again, why I introduced the act, because you could have records scattered amongst various departments, agencies, so say the FAA, flight logs, etc., that she may not, Attorney General Bondi may not have immediate access to. And so what this does, it says everybody freeze, everybody preserve those documents, and then obviously turn them over to the Attorney General. And again, we know the government's good at hiding things. I mean, literally, the Kennedy files, right? I mean, the FBI just found, what was it, 2,600 new Kennedy files? Like, you got to be kidding me, right? And so this is, again, why I introduced the act, an act of Congress to compel the various agencies to cooperate with the Attorney General, identify and preserve those documents so that the justice can be had. And obviously in that process, you've got to protect the victims, because we know there were victims. And quite frankly, I think America wants to know, individuals like Bill Clinton who were on his plane multiple times. We know that. That's not me being mean or political rhetoric. Was he engaging with sexual acts with minors? Did he know that they were minors, and those sorts of things? Those are important questions. They're tough questions. And it'll take some time to get to the truth. But the Pedo Act is an important step in making sure that truth is ultimately found.
But with respect to having to compel federal agencies to honor the wish of the executive, how do we get here?
You've seen, under the Obama administration, under the Biden administration, with the DEI initiatives and all this woke nonsense, where they literally purged agencies and departments, and they were promoting individuals who didn't necessarily even, deserve to be there, weren't qualified to be there. And so you have individuals that are actively working against the administration. I do believe it was a hot mic, an individual working for Homeland Security, who doesn't like the secretary, and stated, and I'll paraphrase, that they were going to do everything they could to undermine her. And so this is kind of the state of play. That's taking place at the FBI. It's taking place at Homeland Security, within the Justice Department. So it is going to take some time. And quite frankly, I don't see Pam Bondi having a whole lot of patience. I think she's going to go in there and clean house where necessary. And good for her, because that's what this country needs. We need, quite frankly, a purge, if you will, of the woke and the DEI hires that, quite frankly, are ruining our country.
Do you have any insight on what exactly happened? Because it's been, a lot of information has been out there, but I like you mentioned, they're all new to office, and they're working really hard to try to fix all of this.
Yeah, I think it's important what they did. They released the documents they had. A lot of it is old information, quite frankly, but what it does is it creates a baseline. It creates, okay, here's everything that we know that we can release. There's probably and arguably documents that they did not release because they have to be gone through carefully. And then again, as you stated, we know that one of the FBI field offices was withholding or hiding documents. And that's got to be, that's got to be rectified immediately. Heads need to roll, people need to be fired. We know the FBI is corrupt. We know that they abused their power. They went after the president. They've gone after members of Congress. They've gone after the American people, quite frankly. And we've got to restore this idea that justice is blind and truly in pursuit of justice versus just political retribution. Look, political retribution didn't work for the Roman Empire, didn't work for the British Empire. It really portended the end of the empire when you start having this tit for tat. And so we've got to restore justice back to, this rule of law, the idea of rule of law, this idea that we have a constitution that should be adhered to, this notion that judges are now a legislative branch. That nonsense has to stop, which we can talk about that later. But our founding fathers, James Madison, warned us about this very moment in time. And so through transparency, through due diligence, I think Bondi and Patel will get to the bottom of this. And again, I would urge people to be patient. I'm a big fan of both of those individuals. I think they're going to do a fantastic job. I think they are going to restore trust in the process, but it will take some time.
But for those who the FBI can determine were involved in doing the illegal activities, what do you hope the outcome of that to be, and what pace in which are you expecting those results?
Well, the pace, to be determined, and that I would think that really will be kind of on a case by case basis, no pun intended, in that that you might have more evidence against one individual that's clear and present and easy to access. The other, you may have uncooperative witnesses, or there may not be as much footage or whatever is out there, right? And so, but I would hope justice would be brought to bear. I hope that the victims go to sleep at night, whether it's a year from now or 2 years from now, knowing that justice was done and had, and that those individuals that knowingly targeted minors not only are in prison, but are under the prison. And quite frankly, I think they should hang, but that's not allowed anymore. But that being said, if you target a minor, your ass needs to be in jail.
We've got 69 seconds to run through everything that happened in AI this week. So I'm going to jump right in because it's been a banner week. So first up, we've got Anthropic dropping Claude 3.7 Sonnet. Its first hybrid reasoning model, which means that it can give you both instant responses and more extended step-by-step thinking that is made visible to the user. It shows particular improvements in coding, front-end development, but as a model, overall, still remains to be seen if it's going to be able to compete with GPT 4.5. We also have Elon Musk and XAI dropping Grok 3. It launched last week. It's been trained on X's data. It's supposed to be much more real-time and real-world aware. It is insane that on testing, it already is testing pretty much at the same level as some of the other newer models. And it means that X may be able to compete with OpenAI. Last, we've got Figure and Helix AI. As a robotics nerd, I'm incredibly excited. It is moving like we do. It was thinking like we do. It is very interesting as a demo. I am very curious to see if we're going to be able to see it as a product. Okay, that's all I got. Everybody, we will see you next week.
Romania stands at a crossroads, grappling with deepening political divisions, economic instability, and growing concerns over corruption. As power struggles unfold between the ruling elite and opposition forces, the country's future hangs in the balance. Allegations of government overreach, judicial interference, and financial mismanagement have fueled public discontent, raising fears that Romania could become the next European crisis zone. In a sit-down with Mihail Neamțu and H.D. Hartman, we unpack the political turmoil, the economic risks, and what this means for Romania's role on the global stage.
Today, we have the distinctive pleasure, or rather the distinct pleasure, to welcome H.D. Hartman, the greatest analyst when it comes to foreign affairs from Bucharest. Welcome, sir. The presidential elections in Romania have been annulled or cancelled in December 2024. The question is, why do you think J.D. Vance felt the need to mention for the second time in a row Romania as a problem?
Well, that was my question as well. I thought as an analyst, I said, maybe it is because the president of the Constitutional Court, day before, gave an interview where he explained that his institution is assuming a role that it was never designed to have, as I'm calling it, the Iranian instance. You know that in Iran, millions of people are voting for their president. But the candidates need to be approved by a theological,
clerical
committee to censor the candidates for the presidency of Iran. If those clerics, Ayatollah, allow you to be the candidate, you can be. If not, you cannot be. And the president of the Romanian Constitutional Court is announcing that they're assuming this role of censoring the candidates to the presidency. in the name of a so-called, nobody knows, but a so-called democratic contract Romania supposedly signed with the world.
Mario asked me to ask you
Yes.
in return to discuss a bit the situation of these judges, clerical judges in Bucharest, not in Tehran, but in Bucharest.
No, in Bucharest.
If you can also tell us something about what is his political background and how do they end up, these judges, 9 of them, basically, I would say, pre-deciding the whole political outcome of an important event, which is the presidential election.
The Constitutional Court of Romania is an European-style instrument for management of elections. For management, nothing else. It's not an ideological or a political tool. Being a management tool, the political elite in Romania thought very well that there is no harm in appointing friendly judges of each political party.
Do they have to be qualified? Do they have to pass an interview?
No.
Do they have to be
I will explain
scrutinized?
you immediately. First of all, from the management tool, you become an Iranian instance, where you censor the beginning of the elections by censoring candidates. They are assuming this role, not written in the laws in the Constitution of Romania. The second absolute madness is that when asking the interview, why did you decide to cancel the elections? The guy says, well, we didn't see anything else than what everyone saw. The declassified documents from the presidency, which
tell you nothing.
Do not present any proof.
It's a nothing burger.
The vice president, Vance of the United States, said it's a flimsy proof what they were.
Mr. Hartman, listen, just for a second. Imagine Marco Rubio is looking at you, is listening to you. Imagine that Elon Musk is looking at you.
Okay.
What would be the message that you would like to send, to convey to our American partners from the Trump administration when it comes to the future of Eastern Europe, of NATO here at this border, and then, of course, the future of Romania?
I will tell Americans in this way. Except Romania on Black Sea, they have no better friend. Turkey, it's a strategic friend. Strategic
But
ally.
opportunistic.
Opportunistic as always. It's a former empire, for God's sake. No better friend, no better loyalty than Romanians. Why? It's because we were betrayed. The last time we were betrayed when we were not invited at the main table in Paris by Macron. That was a betrayal of Romania. That was an insult against Romania.
Okay.
Second, guys, we have Moldavia. Moldavia is our national interest.
Well, I'll have to ask you still.
Wait a second.
What is the message for the current Trump administration?
Be tough.
When it comes to
Be tough. We need a tough friend. We need somebody to tell us a tough father.
But the Constitutional Court will say we don't care.
Well,
we are gonna annul basically the name of Călin Georgescu who won't be allowed to be on the ticket.
In that moment, United States can very simply say, hey guys, you are tampering from the beginning with the elections. We will not recognize the results of that election because you canceled the presence of the best candidate you had in Romania.
So you are suggesting very explicitly, if they cancel the very presence of Călin Georgescu's name on the ticket, you suggest that the outcome of the elections will not be legitimate, will not be legally recognized by the American nation.
Listen, if we ask Americans to fight for our security, Mihai,
to put troops on the ground,
to put their blood on my land if Russians are attacking me, I think America has the right to tell me I will not recognize tampering of the elections.
It takes two to tango, that's the message, and we need to respect our partnership by respecting the values of the founding fathers of the United States, which inspired generations of Romanians. Many Romanians
But there
left.
are our values as well. Did we like communism? Did we like Soviet occupation?
No.
What were the values, alternative values?
But even before...
The values of liberty and freedom, by luck, inscribed in the American history. But those values are human values, are God-given values.
And that's why Romania had a very good relationship with America before communism. When
Exactly.
Queen Mary, you remember?
You remember the successful visit of Queen Mary.
She was welcomed by...
Yes, by the president of that time.
I think it was Calvin Coolidge.
Yes.
Romania was also supported by, do you remember, Woodrow Wilson in 1918 at the Paris conference?
Yes.
So Romania has always been friends with America. It would not be an exception. That's what you're saying.
No, because it's a historical God-given right for Romanians to be near Americans?
Well, listen, this was a very engaging conversation, ladies and gentlemen. We are hoping that you will come back to our program, because only through this kind of discussion, dialogue, and I would say interpretation of the world, we can make Europe and America great again. Bye-bye.
He hasn't done a single interview with new media until now. Belarusian President Lukashenko, Putin's closest ally and Zelensky's former friend, Lukashenko reveals explosive new details about the Ukraine war, his relationship with Putin, and the secret moves that helped stop the mutiny that nearly brought Putin down. From back-channel negotiations to the future of Europe, nothing was off limits. It's the interview the mainstream media have been chasing for years. Here is a sneak peek.
It feels like we live in a different world to a few months ago, where we have conversations, I think frank conversations. People are saying things that they wouldn't usually say. And I feel like the entire paradigm has shifted. But it's not as important to my question, though, is let's go to what's going on right now with the minerals agreement. Are we heading in the right direction for peace? And can you tell me more about your recent discussions with President Putin as well? Is he happy with the progress that's happening? And also, if you can comment, I'm not sure if you've spoken to President Putin, I'm sure you have, regarding his recent call with President Trump as well. How was that call? And, should we be optimistic based on these developments?
Только в общих чертах. И о разговоре с Трампом, и о переговорах в Саудовской Аравии, и по редкоземельным этим материалам. Только в общих чертах. Почему? Потому что через неделю мы с ним встретимся в Москве, и мы очень подробно и детально поговорим по всем вопросам. Вот по телефону мы на это и сослали, что мы встретимся и обсудим все вопросы в деталях. А так коснулись только в общих чертах. Что касается этих редкоземельных материалов, я вопрос поднял, говорю, странно как-то американцы требуют от Украины отдать им наиважнейшее, то, что у них есть. Это же не только о редкоземельных материалах идет речь у США, но идет речь о природном газе, о нефти, о логистике, о портах и так далее. Здесь же более широкий вопрос. И я Путину вот таком изложил свою позицию вот в таком ключе, на что он сказал, типа, что американцы ломятся в открытую дверь. Это есть все в России. Мы можем с ними договориться и работать. А потом публично это озвучил. Поэтому вот, допустим, что касается редкоземельных материалов, что касается договоренности по Украине, он еще раз подтвердил, я его позицию знаю, что мы готовы сесть за стол переговоров, вести переговоры по Украине. Если это касается вопроса Украины, с украинцами. Потом он продолжил говорить, что украинцы и Зеленский обижаются, что их не позвали в Саудовскую Аравию. Но зачем звать, если там вопросы были России и США? Там только вскользь затронули на этих переговорах вопросы Украины. Поэтому зачем было звать Украину? Ну, об этом и Трамп уже сказал в этом ключе. Когда будут решаться вопросы Украины, я думаю, без Украины эти вопросы никто решать не будет.
Do you think that increasing, the incentives that the US has in Ukraine with this deal, could that be seen as a threat? Because now the US has more interest in Ukraine if that deal goes through, which is about to be signed in a few days. So could that be seen as a threat to Russia? Also, I think let's just focus on that question. The comments by I think France and the UK about sending peacekeeping force as well to Belarus. What are your thoughts on that? Not to Belarus, to Ukraine, because could that be seen as a threat as well to Russia? So you got the peacekeeping force and increased interests, US interests in Ukraine.
Что касается последнего вопроса, который вы задали в конце у Франции, Германии по поводу направления туда миротворческих сил. Россия никогда с этим не согласится. По крайней мере, такая позиция России на сегодняшний день. Тем более, что руководство Европейского Союза, прежде всего в лице Германии и Франции, занимают очень агрессивную позицию в данный момент. Не знаю, удалось Трампу на переговорах с Макроном и Стармером склонить их в сторону мира и мирных переговоров, но вы видите, они занимают очень агрессивную позицию в отношении войны войны России и Украины. Поэтому Россия категорически против всяких миротворческих сил со стороны европейских государств.
Time now for my take on a topic that set X off this week. We were treated to a lesson in empathy and wokeness from none other than Jane Fonda. You know, the Academy Award-winning actress. Take a look.
We actors, we don't manufacture anything tangible. What we create is empathy. Empathy is not weak or woke. And by the way, woke just means you give a damn about other people.
Of course, her fellow creatives and Democratic darlings, well, they loved the speech, hailing it as a powerful statement during a period of immense turmoil. Oh, and when they say turmoil, they of course mean Trump. On MSNBC, they declared, Jane Fonda just showed us how to respond to Donald Trump. Look, I reckon a simple thank you, Mr. President would suffice, but I'm an Aussie. What would I know? I guess I can only look at it from the outside, which I do multiple times a day. And when it comes to empathy and what true leaders do in response to the presence of it, Trump may just be leading the world. Back to that in a moment. Jane also tells the masses that woke just means you give a damn about people. No, Jane, it doesn't. It means you pretend to care in a way you think will garner favour amongst your target audience. It rarely results in anything actually helpful. Woke has never been outcome-based. If it were, it would have ceased to exist within seconds. Empathy might mean you care, but service is when you act. Giving a damn about people is doing what is required, even when it is hard or deeply unpopular, because you know it's for the greater good. So former President Biden might have expressed empathy for many suffering within his own country and around the world, but did not a thing to improve their circumstances. In fact, he often made it much worse. President Trump does the opposite, the actual hard work to fix/improve whatever it is that's causing pain. Maybe without all the emotional talk and reference to feelings and the like, but I suspect I know what the vast majority of people would rather. Those who lost loved ones, pets, homes in the LA bushfires suspect they didn't feel too cared for as their lives burnt down around them. Or the mothers of daughters slain by illegal immigrants suspect they didn't feel particularly cared for either. How about the girls who were forced to share change rooms with men? You get my point. So just to reiterate for those at the back who might need it louder, the Hollywood elite and entire Democratic cheer squad are not the gatekeepers of empathy, nor the sole feelers of it. They just ensure the need for it remains so they have the subject matter to virtue signal until the cows come home. Trump and his team of merry men and women would much rather address the core issue and fix the problem. And there's no greater evidence of that than the past month in office. Do you think those currently in conflict zones around the world would rather empathy or actions that negate the need for it? You know, someone doing something that might result in their loved ones not dying. And that's a wrap on 69X Minutes, where we cut to the chase and bring you the truth unfiltered. Stay sharp, stay skeptical, and stay ahead of the game. You can do that with us right here. Thanks to the special team at CJN for making this show possible and keeping the unfiltered truth alive. Until next time, keep your eyes on X, because we all know the truth never sleeps.